Do you know what's the meeting ID?
They shouldn't need to use a meeting ID. Let me pull it up. Is Ike asking that?
Yeah.
Let me see. 846-5197-8297.
Come again. If 846-5
197-8297. Here, let me post the long link in the Houston chat one more time. I think I posted the shorthand link. That might be giving him issues.
All right. Okay, Ike is here, right? Let's see, Ike. Mic check. Ike, you're here, right? Ike Chinedu, you're here, right?
Yes, I'm here. Good morning, everyone. Give me 1 second to just get set up.
All right.
All right. Are we still waiting on some folks to join?
No, I think we could get started. Let's be mindful of everyone's time. Let me see. All right.
Okay.
So,
all right.
Yeah, you want to share, right?
Yeah, let me share my screen. I'll pull up our presentation.
Gentlemen, before you guys jump in, just introduce yourselves to the group, please, before you guys go ahead and jump in. I'm going to go ahead and go on mute. So you guys take it from here.
So Patrick, we actually have a slide to do that, and we'll get to it like very shortly once we get started. All right, let me share my screen. Let me know. Who's the host? Patrick, could you give me access to share my screen?
Absolutely. Let me make you host here.
Okay.
Okay, try it now.
All right, perfect.
All right.
Can you all see my screen?
Yep.
Okay. Uh-oh. Hold on.
Yeah. All right. Welcome, everyone.
Give me a moment here. Having some slight issues.
Sure.
Hello, everyone.
Hello.
Hi. Is this being recorded just for if somebody needed to go back?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Sure. Thank you.
Sure. Sorry, I'm struggling here a little bit. Meza, why don't you go ahead and get started?
Yeah,
and,
I'll go ahead. We'll
use this view and navigate through it.
Yeah, it's all good. So, welcome everyone. Igbo Queen. Yeah, okay. Yeah, all kind of on mute, but I'm glad that everyone is here. Welcome everyone. So we are trying to present to you about data engineering. And this is the second time we are doing this. Last year we did something like this. And you can go to the next slide. So why are we here? We are here because we want to learn about data engineering. We want to learn what it is, what skills you need, why is it such a booming field with so many opportunities, and how you can even get into this field and start making that money. Next slide. So we have an agenda for today. First, we'll talk about what is the data engineering, understand what it is. Secondly, we'll talk about how you can become one, how you can become a data engineer, what skills you need. We also will share a lot of the resources that we have used that we found very helpful to become a data engineer. And lastly, we'll have a Q&A session. Next. So in this session, we have a couple of amazing speakers that will present to you, including myself. Right now, we'll give a quick introduction on ourselves. First, I'll pass it to Patrick, our host, to kind of give a quick one-liner about him, and then he can pass it back to us to introduce ourselves.
Patrick, you might be on mute.
All right. Maybe he stepped out, maybe.
Probably.
He might have stepped out. He might have stepped out. So Ike, why don't you go first? And then Chineke.
Yeah, sure. So like Mezu was just talking about, he did this last year with another guy, Lambert, and I volunteered to do this year. So I've been in the data field for, I want to say maybe 10 years. I recently started as a senior data engineer at VMware. So I'm not sure if some of you have heard of VMware, but they do virtualization software. I know a lot of you came to this meeting hoping to learn about how you can become a data engineer. So I think I, in particular, can probably help you with that because that's something I just did recently. So we'll get to a point where we can talk about it. If you guys have any questions, feel free to let us know.
Sure.
Yeah. And lastly, I'm part of UIU Houston, if any of you are curious.
Yeah. Then Chinedu, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
I don't know if Chinedu, are you having audio issues?
Yeah.
Okay. Good morning, everyone, or is it afternoon? My name is Chinedu. I'm a data engineer. Just like Ike said, I also transitioned to become a data engineer just recently. Now, I'll say about 2-3 years ago, and I'm excited to be part of this. I can share my story just like everyone else, and then see that you guys, if it's something that you're interested in and willing to put in the work, it's definitely achievable. So
yeah,
that's pretty much it.
Yeah, thank you. And my name Mezue Obiesi. I've been a data engineer since 2018. Before that, I've been in the data analytics space for close to, you could say, 6 years before that. And I have a engineering background, but currently I'm working as a senior data engineer at Capgemini. And mostly my focus has been with the Microsoft Azure cloud practice and Houston clients. So let's go to the next slide. So what is data engineering? All right. So we have a quick poll on this. So first, we want to understand a little bit about our audience here. Like, if you guys can take a moment and scan the QR code with your phone, we just want to understand what role you are, like where you are coming from. If you are an IT, if you are already in an IT role, or you are in IT, you're actually in IT, but you are not working in a data role, or you are just a non-IT person. That way we can understand a little bit about you. Wow, it's kind of even so far.
Okay, so how many people do we have on the call? We have 15. Okay, so not 50%. It's not in IT. Okay.
All right.
All right.
All right. That's cool. That's what we expected. So we'll try to make it very descriptive, and so that way you could understand. So what is data engineering? Before I talk about what is data engineering, I think it's important to go back and understand what is data analytics, first of all. So data analytics is the process of studying, observing, quantifying what has happened or what will happen if you talk about artificial intelligence, using the data that is generated in your business or you capture in your business, so that you can actually make informed decisions that will hopefully lead to more profit or lead to cost savings. So that's what data analytics is all about. And I can give you a brief example. You can imagine if you are running an e-commerce store like Amazon, and you have to figure out where you need to invest your resources in the next year to grow your profit, you probably want to first understand how you're currently doing across the regions, across the countries that you're operating in. And that involves some data analytics. Now, let's talk about data engineering. So data engineering is a discipline in data analytics that basically is in charge of gathering that data from the multiple sources where the data is stored, transforming them and cleaning them and loading them into a central location for data analytics or data scientists to easily visualize and analyze and get the business value from that data. And all this has to be done in an automated fashion as well. Again, going back to the Amazon example, you can imagine data is stored in different regions or countries. And now, for us to understand which country is generating the most revenue, we need to extract the data from all these countries into one central place. Maybe our headquarters is in US. We probably want to ingest all that data into the US data storage location. And then, since the data is coming from different countries, a good example of a business cleaning or transformation that a data engineer might have to do is, like, they have to standardize the dates. So, for example, in US, we use month, day, year, but in somewhere in UK, they have day, month, year. So something like that is a simple example where a data engineer, your goal is to standardize that data so that an analyst can easily perform the analytics on it. And the data will be all uniform and easy to visualize. So that's just a brief overview of what is data engineering. I can go into more detail of what the role of a data engineer is.
Yeah, thanks, Mezu. So a data engineer has multiple roles. There are 4 main roles that a data engineer does. Before I go into any of that, the key thing that most people to understand is that every business, data engineering has been around since the beginning of time. It's not going anywhere. There's a reason for that, because every business sells something, right? Every business makes money somehow. Nike sells clothes, Adidas sells shoes, same thing. They're both in the same line of business. Every business has to sell something. And when you're selling some kind of service or product, you need to understand what it is, how many things have been sold, who am I selling to, who are we giving out discounts to, are we losing money this year? You can't just do things arbitrarily, right? So data engineers have existed since the beginning of time to answer these questions, right? Without these questions, businesses can't operate, they can't function day to day, they can't remain competitive. So what a lot of companies are doing now is they're pushing people to understand and do more with the data that they have. So everything they collect about customers, everything they collect about their businesses, they want data engineers to help them make sense of all this stuff so they can maintain a competitive, market advantage. So first things first, a data engineer has to be able to communicate, right? You need to meet with several departments within an organization and understand what it is that you guys are doing. What do you need to see to help you do your job better, to make decisions day to day, so we can become more competitive. So I'll give you an example. If you work in the marketing department, as a data engineer, you would meet with the marketing folks, understand what is the marketing campaign they're running, how many customers, are they funneling into the campaign, how many customers are leaving, how many are being maintained, how many new customers are getting. You could also meet with the sales department, understand how many sales are we making per month, right? For all the Nike shoes that we're selling. So first things first, you need to be able to communicate, sit down with folks in a room, have a conversation about what it is that they do, what it is that they want to see, how you can help them collect all this data that they're using day to day and make sense of it so that they can start to, pull the levers and make better decisions. So a data engineer has to be able to communicate. Once you understand all the things that, let's say, a team in the marketing team wants to see, it might be a report about how many new customers do we get every day, how many new customers do we lose, every day. It can be something that simple, but once you understand what they're looking for, the requirements, you need to model that into structures that you will create to bring all those requirements together. And the marketing department will eventually have this data shown to them somehow. So bringing those requirements together is known as data modeling. You take all these data coming from sales, marketing, coming from finance, pull it all together into one place, put it, it's like a visualization of what do I need to look for, what do I need to grab, what do these people want to see to help them make their decisions better. Once you have the data model, what the requirements are, you'll basically create what is called a data pipeline. So you move this data from some place where it's stored. It could just be coming from the sales SAP, a sales software that the sales department uses every day to make sales. You're going to pull all of that into some kind of database or a table somewhere, so you can structure it and have it be organized so it can be reported on. So the process of moving something from whatever applications they're coming from all the way into these tables is called creating data pipelines, sometimes called ETL, which just means extract, transform, and load. And then the last responsibility that you have as a data engineer is you need to help create reports or dashboards so that the end users, the sales and marketing team, can understand what it is that their business, their operations look like day to day. So you'll typically work with other engineers to create reports that will look at all these tables that you built. And these reports might show things like what's the segmentation of male versus females in Hawaii that are buying clothing in last year or year over year. It's become so powerful now that a lot of companies, as they continue to gain more information about their own data, they're able to predict things they were never able to do before. There's this one particular story about how a father found out his daughter was pregnant because he kept getting mails from, I think it was like Macy's or something, for baby products. And the way Macy's was able to figure it out was because they found out that his daughter was buying beer with a combination of like shoes. And typically women who buy beer and shoes or something of that sort are typically new mothers. So he was shocked, had a conversation with his daughter, and you can imagine how that went.
Yeah.
But that's the general role of a data engineer. Communication is really important. Having technical skills to build the data models and the pipelines, and then being able to collaborate with folks who will build the reports. And nowadays, that's going beyond reports. It's now going into machine learning, Chat GPT. So I'll let Chinedu talk about why you might be interested in becoming a data engineer and what some of the incentives there look like.
So thank you so much, Ike Obi. So let's use our phone, scan these codes, and then make a choice, and then we'll see what the typical reasons why people want to, or what people value most in a career, and then we can introduce why some people might want to be a data engineer.
Let's see if we have some results here. And if you guys are on mute and you need me to switch back to the
If
code, just let me know.
Okay, if you finish choosing an option, you can put a thumbs up. They have a reactions button, right? So just put a thumbs up so we can know.
Yeah, because everyone is kind of muted by default.
Yeah, just put a thumbs up so we can know, people that are done with it. Keep track.
Okay, well, let's give it another minute and then we'll move on to the next slide. All right.
Got it.
So just one person for salary.
4 people.
Wow, we have a very, 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 what's it called? Pretentious, I forgot what it's called, but you have very good vocational people here, maybe.
We have 14 people in the call, and how many responses so far?
5.
5. What about others? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think we can move on, Chinedu. I think we'll have an opportunity to discuss with the group.
Okay.
And get some more honest answers.
Yeah, I see salary in the bottom in one of the chats. The salary. You're right. I mean, enough of all these big stories that Ike was saying. You do this, do that. Many other jobs, you have to do 1 or 2 things again. So these are some of the reasons why people want to be a data engineer. But for me, even for me, one of the biggest reasons is the salary, right? You can see this, right? 6 figures right there off the back for average. So a lot of people become data engineers. Obviously, it's one of the most highly compensated professions, one of the most highly compensated disciplines in IT. It's part of the IT. A lot of people know people in IT make a lot of money. And obviously, as a data engineer, you do that as well. And typically, this is an average. The range varies. It could be between $100,000 to, you'd be surprised. I've seen people making up to $500,000, but most of the people make between $100,000 to like $250,000, and we know that that's a lot of money. So that's one of the reasons. Another reason is that there's high demand for data engineers, just as Ike said. Businesses that do data analytics, and if you've heard, a lot of businesses saying they want to be data driven, and everybody typically has a smartphone these days. So once you pick up your smartphone, pretty much everything you do, you generate data, and companies make use of these data to, drive the business forward. Just as you see, someone found out their daughter was pregnant because the company was making good use of the data. So there's huge demand for data engineers, and there's always going to be huge demand for data engineers. Also, future-proof. You want a career where, you you want to be also competitive. You don't want, you know, we have an AI revolution, you know, some jobs go extinct and things like that. You want a career where even in 10 years time, you still be in that career and there's not going to be a big shift. Data engineer is one of those. As you can see, most companies, the ones that don't make good use of their data, are trying to make good use of the data so they can be more competitive. And that's for the future, right? So as we move more forward towards a digital world and towards a data-driven economy or data-driven world, companies are always going to need data engineer in the future. So that's the future is secured per se. So the future is secured, and even forget about the future, the present is even guaranteed, because right now there's a lot of jobs and there's huge pay for that as well. So these are some statistics about, you know, data engineers. According to Indeed, it's the second hardest job in the market because there's a lot of jobs, a lot of need for it. And I'm interested to know that there's a lot of women in data engineering as well. So it's not something to be scared of if you're a female. According to some statistics, 18% of data engineers are women, and there are very high demand for females in this discipline. So it's something that everybody can do. And also the discipline of data engineering keeps growing. So there's huge growth for it, growing by 40% year over year. And as you can see, I think there's one statistic I saw somewhere that in 2025, the amount of data that we generate is going to be almost triple what it is. So as you get more data, you need a lot of people experience to handle that data so you can make good use of it. And that's where data engineers come in. It's part of a discipline STEM. As we know, STEM is science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. So it empowers data engineers to continue growing. And as AI continues to evolve, there's going to be continuous demand for data engineers. Next slide. I'll pass it on.
Thank you, Chinedu. Yeah, I'm very motivated and excited about being a data engineer. If I was new to this, so I'm going to talk about a little bit about, okay, what are the skill sets required to be successful, to be actually break into this field? I'm not gonna lie, it's not easy. However, I will describe the most fundamental skills that you actually need. First is as a data engineer, you need some programming skills. And we need programming skills because that is most of the systems we work with. You need to write a piece of code to actually interact with the system and extract the data that you want. So the two main programming skills that are most popular now for data engineers are SQL and Python. And for SQL, that is mostly used with most of the database systems, while Python is used for automating tasks and doing some complex transformation or business logic. Secondly, another very important skill required is theoretical knowledge of data engineering concepts. For example, I talked about the ETL, data pipeline, data modeling. These are concepts that, as a data engineer, you need to be quite aware of and understand, because that's what you will be implementing in the job. So a concept like extract, transform, and load, you have to understand the different design patterns. You know, some have these terms like streaming, processing, batch processing, data warehouse, slowly changing dimensions. So there's so many terms that you know we don't have to overwhelm you here, but trust me, it doesn't take more than a few weeks to learn them. And thirdly, another key skill that you have to have as a data engineer is understanding of the data storage systems, both from the source systems and the target systems. In the real world, most of the cases, most of the data is stored in some kind of relational database. So I talked about SAP. There's still many different ones like SQL, Microsoft SQL Server, Oracle, DB2. However, most of them, they all operate in a similar manner. So you just need to learn one, understand it very well, and you can translate that knowledge to other database systems. In addition, when it comes to where the data is stored or centralized, we have different storage systems like data lakes, data warehouses that are also in the cloud. So one has to understand those as well. However, like I said, the concepts of a database is quite similar, and once you learn one, you can just learn a few other little things, and you can broaden and or be familiar with the target database systems. Finally, another key skill is the tools. Like you have to have a good understanding or knowledge of the tools that we use in data engineering. So a couple of them are, you have the data extraction tools, data orchestration tools, data transformation tools. So these are all like, when I explained you have to extract the data. So we have tools that help us do that. They're called ETL tools, extract, transform, and load. So those tools, you just need to learn one, like I said earlier, and the concept, it can be applied to the different ones. So one of the popular tools in the market is Data Factory. If you're working in Microsoft Azure Cloud, you have to be probably familiar with that. And then some other tools, Airflow, which is more towards people working in AWS. And then another very important tool that people use for heavy compute and transformation and cleaning or applying a lot of the business logic is called Spark or Databricks. So that tool is also very important. However, if you can learn that tool, a lot of the systems, you can translate that knowledge to other similar tools. So these are the main tools that I think you need to learn. Then, like Ike mentioned as well, the soft skills that are needed as a data engineer, like being able to communicate properly, being articulate, writing emails. These are some of the fundamental things I think most of us that come from Nigeria, where English is our first language, you don't have that much problem in this. But however, just something you can keep being mindful and keep improving on, because even I can get some improvement in that as well. So yeah, next slide. Yeah, how to become data engineer. Yeah, Ike, you take it from here.
Yeah, so I won't bore you guys too much with the details of how to become a data engineer. I think if you generally are very interested, we'll connect offline and go through all the steps. But just to piggyback on what Mezu was saying, if I were starting all over today, trying to be a data engineer, there is a path that you should probably follow if you're seriously interested in, learning and making a transition. So the first thing you should focus on is learning about data theory. So understanding, what is a table, what is a database, what is a fact, what is a dimension. These are all concepts that you have to understand just as a data engineer or as a data analyst, or if you even work in any position in the data world. Having a good understanding of data theory will be helpful to get you started. And there's many resources for that. Then you have to move on to SQL. Most of you guys have heard of SQL before. It's called structured query language. This is the language that allows you to talk to databases and tables and to pull data. So this is the language of data manipulation. So SQL is very important. It's a key skill. You can't get away from it at all as a data engineer. And then next, you would learn about data warehouse. So data warehouse is what we have traditionally used for a long time as data engineers. to organize data, structure it, put it in a format that makes sense so that other people can look at it and use it for, reporting, analytics, prediction, prescriptive modeling, etc. So you learn about how do you create a data warehouse using SQL. There's a process to do it, and it's pretty much set in stone now because this has been done for decades at this point. So the first three paths, if you're trying to become a data engineer, we typically will call this the traditional data engineer path. And if you can master these three, you don't need to even worry about the other six on average, because a lot of data engineering today is still using just these three areas. And as long as you have a good foundation of these three core sections, you can get probably 80% of data engineering jobs out there. The next three, these move into what we'd like to call, what we call today, more modern data engineering. So because of, like Chinedu was saying, because data is exploding rapidly, I think there was some stat that says we collect more data in one day today than we did in the last 10 years. So because we have social media, we have the internet, we have everyone and their grandmother using cell phones, right? So everything is all data today. And it's getting scary, but because of this explosion in data, we now have what we call big data. And big data has created these three, additional areas that help us to now explore data that is so massive, is so huge. We can't just use the traditional ways we used to look at before. We need to kind of move into more powerful systems that allow us to understand what big data, how we can process terabytes and petabytes of data. So that's where you now have some data engineers focusing on things like Python, like the cloud, like data lakehouse. These are things that Mezu talked about. And you need these tools to better understand, especially big data concepts. And it's very powerful because not a lot of data engineers have these skill sets. So if you start along the path and you want to stop at data warehouse, that's fine. But if you can extend yourself a little bit and learn some of these additional technologies, it would make you very, very attractive and competitive as a data engineer. You could basically go anywhere. So Python, cloud, data lakehouse. I won't go into too much details because Mezu talked about this. The big one is cloud. As most of you, maybe who grew up in the 1990s, early 2000s, everything now is in the cloud. We don't own things anymore. So if you grew up in 1990s, 2000, maybe you used to go to Blockbuster, rent DVDs, sometimes they wouldn't have the DVD or some guy would take it just before you could check out, whatever. Nowadays, no one does that, right? We just all go online. The movies are stored in the cloud. We all have Netflix and we can just watch the movies from our browser. We don't have to own the movie, the physical disc. Netflix can own it for us and we'll just watch it from the internet. And that's all that entire movie is stored in the cloud. So it's the same with data. Before, companies used to have a physical computers to store their data. Now they allow Amazon and Microsoft to store their data for them, and they'll just access their data over the internet. So it's less cost, less overhead, less management. But as a result, it's complicated things for data engineers because you have to understand the cloud, you have to understand these technologies, you have to learn Python because Python is very good for manipulating big data in the cloud. You have to learn data lakehouse, which is we don't just care anymore that data is just coming from applications and it's in tables, but we have all these types of data that we want to look at, like movies, video, audio tapes, right? Pictures, right? That's what a data lakehouse is. It's enabling you to think of everything as data. So you can have machine learning models, run, prediction models on anything, whether that's a picture to figure out, is this animal a cat, is it a dog, or whether that's, an audio tape to be able to make all these deep fake videos you see on the internet. So we've moved into a very modern world. And eventually this snake is going to probably have two more, sections after this, because what people are predicting, and this is why data engineering is exploding, is we're going to get to a point. I don't know if any of you have seen this animated show called Psychopaths, but we're going to get to a point where we'll have videos, we'll have sensors all around, whether that's, you know, traffic cameras or whatever, that will collect data. They already do this today, but they'll collect data and will have the means to automatically process that data in real time and instantly tell, just like in this show I'm talking about, Psychopaths, if someone is doing something illegal, if someone is crossing the bridge, if someone is getting attacked, if someone fell down, and the police and anybody can instantly take response, would automatically be notified. So we're going to move into a point where big data will not just be processed just, you know, for corporations to make better decisions, but it's going to become more overall widespread, and things will be more in real time. So if you're definitely interested in big data, now is a great time to start. As some of you have seen, AI, GPT, that's expanding, and this is just going to keep growing and get even more in demand. I think we can move on to the next slide.
Yeah, personal stories. Yeah, so we will talk about a little bit about our personal journey. That way, you know exactly how we got into this field and what our experiences were. So I can go first. First, I came from electrical engineering background. So I did my bachelor's in electrical engineering. However, after graduating, I tried to get a job as an electrical engineer, but it wasn't working out. You know, it was a little bit tough, and I was like, you know what? I hear about IT, and they have so many jobs. So I ended up signing up for a boot camp that took, you know, students that, you know, for like a 3 months program, they will train you and help you get a job. Little did I know it wasn't as easy as I thought. So like I signed up. I went to they had a guest house for us. We were there for like 3 months. We learned at that time I learned SQL and database and ETL2 called SSIS. That time it was called becoming a SQL or database programmer. And I recall that I was doing that program and I was like, wait, out of everything I learned in school, I'm only utilizing the 2 programming classes that I did as electrical engineer, which came in quite helpful. And as I went through the course, I decided I thought I could see myself doing this. I liked what I was learning. However, after the program, I started applying for jobs. So at that point, they give us like they help prep us with some resumes that we'll talk a little bit more about that, how to have your resume prepped up. So we have all these long resumes with a lot of experience. And applying for the job, it took me so long because as I was applying, I just kept figuring out that there's little, I didn't even know much. And it took about 5 months of just constantly going through interviews, learning on my own after the training to actually land my first job. And, you know, throughout that month, I remember that I really felt like, you know, it was quite difficult. You know, I wanted to give up a lot of time, but I believe that just having faith in God, prayer, you know, and getting the encouragement from, you know, close friends and family, and also believing yourself. That's one thing that I noticed that helped me a lot, was seeing the progress that I was making from each and every interview, I could see that there's a light at the end of the tunnel. So for everyone that's gonna try to go into this journey, just focus, believe in yourself, keep praying, work hard, trust the process. As long as you're making progress, that's the most important thing. You're gonna get a job. And once I got that first job, everything became a lot easier because as I worked, after a few years, I ended up enrolling into my master's degree in data science. And as I was learning that, I learned Python. That helped me start looking for a proper data engineering role. And that, it took me like, let's say 1 or 2 months to learn other skills needed. And I finally landed the data engineering role. And, I've just been a data engineer from there on. So yeah, I'll pass it on to Ike.
Yeah, so I started off in consulting. When I first started, I wasn't doing anything data related. I got hired by Accenture after college, and I was doing like IT consulting, ERP work. Long story short, I got bored of my job. I was not like happy day to day. So I woke up one day, I decided to do something daring, and I just quit. I quit my job. I decided I would start my own company. So I started doing that. I was meeting a lot of people. It was essentially a startup with me and a few friends. And throughout the process, we were struggling because we didn't know how to make our company grow. So I kept meeting founders and venture capitalists, and all they kept talking about was, you don't understand data, right? You don't understand your customers. You're not collecting data. And I was like, what is all this data stuff? Why are you guys talking about this stuff? But it was important. And because I didn't understand data, even though I was helped a lot in my startup with investments and all this stuff, we ended up failing. So it was a lesson that I took to heart. And after my startup failed, I left Austin, Texas, which is where I lived at the time, moved to Houston, started working for an oil and gas company. And then I started forcing my way into being like a data analyst. I started off being like a tester, just doing little things to learn. So like I said, I wasn't in this world initially. I learned it over time, right? So I started doing little things, and eventually I left the oil and gas company, and I purposely went to a company that focused just on data. Again, I didn't have a lot of experience, started small, just being a data analyst, started doing multiple things, trying to be as curious and productive as possible, moved into doing data engineering as a junior data engineer after like a year. And then after that, I became a lead, and then I became a project manager. I was there for like 5.5 or 6 years. At the end of my career, I was like a senior project manager, but I wasn't really 100% happy with the role. So after about 1.5 years of doing that, I decided to put all my hats into being a data engineer, move away from management, and try to, revitalize all my skills that I learned before and learn new things. So it took me, once I made a decision, I started kind of being the guy that was sketchy at work, doing extra lessons on Udemy at the side while also in meetings. You guys keep that to yourself, but I spent 5 or 6 months not being 100% devoted to my job and learning how to be a data engineer, because it's growing and was exploding. Now I was successful in doing that, thankfully, and I ended up just recently, late last year, getting a role at VMware where I'm a senior data engineer.
Now you make a lot of money and you're happy, right?
I wish. I wish. One day.
Okay, sounds good. So I'm next up. I guess my story is kind of different from Ike and Obi. Basically, why I decided to be a data engineer is it's very simple. One day poverty, woke me up and told me to my face that you this boy, I will kill you. So and so that was why I decided to be a data engineer. So because I didn't want poverty to, I never had a startup. I never made money in oil and gas and things like that. So I was on the brink. So poverty almost killed me. So I decided to switch and join these IT guys to make money. So it was a lot of work. When you're Because as a result of that, my dire situation, I didn't want to get killed by poverty. So I put in a lot of effort. Yeah, I put in a lot of effort. I did research, learn about what to become a data engineer. I mean, I started out wanting to be a data scientist because, when you get into IT, there's a lot of things in IT. Sometimes you don't even know which one you want to go into. You could go into web development, you could go into DevOps, you go into data science and all of these. So at the time, I didn't even know the difference between a data engineer, a data scientist, and a data analyst. So I started out wanting to be a data scientist. And from my research, you have to learn SQL, Python, R, and all this good stuff to be a data scientist. So I started out learning SQL on my own. I used Udemy videos, YouTube, read a lot of blogs and so on and so forth. I learned Python on my own as well. And because my background was not related to IT, I decided to, go for a graduate program in data science. And I was doing that part-time while I learned a lot of things on my own. And started kind of looking for opportunities in data science. And I met Obi, and then he told me, oh, why not become a data engineer and things like that. And since I was already in the path to become a data scientist, so it's kind of similar skills required. So I already knew SQL and Python basically. So I just made a pivot into data engineering and beat up my cloud skills, mainly Azure. And from there, I started applying to a lot of jobs. And it was not so easy. So a lot of things in resume, adjust the resume, ask some help. Obi gave me some input, and eventually somebody believed me and gave me a chance, and I became a data engineer. And since then, I've been, given a lot of opportunity to get a lot of hands-on in data engineering. And now I wouldn't say I'm comfortable, but I'm a data engineer now, and that's pretty much it.
Great.
So for the sake of time, Ms., I think let's speed through some of these remaining slides so we can get to Q&A. Are you fine with that as well? Okay. All right, so we'll skip through
Yeah,
some
no
of
more
these
poverty,
slides.
Dennis. No more poverty.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so folks, we'll just spend a few more minutes here. I know some of you have gathered a lot of information from today, but we do have some great resources, and we'll share this presentation so you guys can have some resources to look at in more detail. The presentation has links. Some of the best resources, I think, if you're trying to become a data engineer that you should look into is Udemy. That's a great place to buy some very cheap courses. That's what I used. I know Chinedu used that as well. And then you have YouTube University. So you guys know YouTube is king, right? So free resources, as long as you know what to search for, you can never go wrong with YouTube. Last thing is, whether you're using Udemy, YouTube, my recommendation is always to practice. That's what changed. That's what will take you from just being a passive listener or participant to being active, and that's where you really start to test your skills and get familiar with the job. So whether you're using YouTube, Udemy, definitely practice, and you'll definitely get the hang of doing some of this data engineering work. And one thing I'll say is, don't worry about whether you are technical, whether you are functional, whether you're coming from just high school. Don't worry about any of that stuff. What matters is really your determination and your drive, right? Most of you use Instagram. That's why we have a picture of this. And most people don't know, one of the co-founders of Instagram, Kevin Systrom, he was a product marketer, right? He knew nothing about programming. He taught himself programming just so he could, build some of the functionality of Instagram. And he actually built the filters that we use in Instagram. It was a recommendation from his wife, but he was able to build that, test it out all by himself. And because of that, Instagram is arguably what it is today. So don't worry about what your background is. It's about the effort, it's about the work and connecting with the right people. Another great resource, just to top this off, is Mezu or Obi. He has a YouTube channel called Afro Tech Info. We have a link here. If you guys want to check it out, it's a great resource. Mezu, I don't know if you want to say anything on this slide.
Just I'll drop the link in the chat. It's actually Afro Infotech.
Afro Infotech.
I'll drop the link in the chat. Yeah, but it's a good resource. I'm still brand new, so please don't judge me too much. I'm trying to put out content, some projects that I find interesting. I just make a YouTube video about it, and also I just talk about data engineering. And additionally, I'm gonna also say right now, I'll be putting out my contact as well. So eventually, if you are interested in the learning SQL, because I have taught SQL in the past, because SQL is a fundamental skill needed for if you want to be data analyst, data engineer, data scientist. SQL is very, very important. So if you want to learn that, I will be putting my email contact, so you can shoot me a message. We'll be planning to have a boot camp on that very soon. So yeah, I'll keep you posted. Yeah, thank you.
All right, great. Okay, so we would like to get to Q&A. So the last few slides we have for you folks, just for the sake of time, we will share this presentation, but we have some great projects if you're interested. Some are free, some are paid. Mezu has a great article on what is the best way to become a data engineer. I recommend, at least if you're not interested in anything on this slide in regards to projects, at least take a look at his article. It's a great article, helped me get started. We also have resources on resume, how to write a great resume, things you can put on your resume, sample resumes, and as well as interview resources. There's tons of great articles that we've listed here. If you want to perfect your interview skills, if you go through the process and you're at the point where you want to interview, we have some great resources here for you as well. All right, so let's get to Q&A, question and answer. There's no such thing as a stupid question.
Somebody
So please feel free.
Can you go back to slide 17? Someone was saying, can you go back
Slide 17. Sure. What do you mean slide 18?
17, that's what I saw on chat.
Okay. All right, so I think some folks have some questions. So let me stop sharing. We'll stay on video. And if you guys have any questions, please feel free to
slide
let us
16.
know. Oh, slide 16?
Yeah, slide 16. Is everyone able to talk, or are they still on mute? I think,
Yeah.
all right. Okay, you can talk. Okay, that's good.
Yeah, my name is Nemeka. I just want to know, how does one who doesn't have a background in tech, how is someone like that able to become a data engineer?
Nezir, do you want to take that one?
Yeah, let me take it first. Yeah, start at it. So if you don't have a background in tech, but let's say you come from, like for us, all of us, we didn't come from tech, but however we came from engineering, like electrical, mechanical, something like that. It's a lot easier because you already have some analytical skills, some maybe you might take some programming classes in college, so it's easier. However, if you completely come from, like, let's say social science, you do some psychology in bachelor's, that's different. So what I would advise is people that come from completely non-tech, non-STEM related field, I would advise them to first go into a data analyst role, because that is, you're gonna work with the data, but as well as, yeah, it's not like too much programming. You just maybe learn SQL, which is a much simpler language, and it's gonna get you started on analyzing data, thinking in analytical manner. And I think that's a good place to start. Then once you get good familiarity with that, you can start learning about the data engineering. You could start taking the more advanced courses on, like, Python and the other skills like data bricks and all that. You want to add anything, Ike or Chinedu?
Well, I mean, I think your background sometimes it matters. Everybody have different background, right? But to me, I think it's more of like determination and commitment. So if you want to learn it, it's not usually that easy, but you have to put in the effort, because even to learn SQL is one of the easier languages to learn, but you have to put in the effort. You have to be consistent, right? It's not like, because initially when I didn't have a tech background, even though I had a STEM background, but I didn't have a tech background. I don't know how to code. But when I was talking about I want to go into IT and so on and so forth, it took me like 4 years of talking and 1 year of doing to actually get in. So for all those 4 years, I was like, I want to do this. Then one day I'll pick up like Python. I'll do like maybe 1 hour and then the next 3 months I won't do anything. And I'll say, oh, and then, so I wasn't consistent. So that I couldn't go anywhere, right? But when I finally made the decision after that weird encounter with poverty, like I was saying, so then I was committed. It was like more every day. Also, some people cannot do every day. It just depends on your schedule. But if you can put in, if it's 30 minutes or an hour every day, you will definitely see the difference over time, and then no matter your background, depending on your background, that's what's going to determine what kind of resources you're going to use. So, and then obviously, like Mezu said, if you had a STEM background or anything programming, it would be easier. But even if you don't, you can still do it, because there's one guy in my team. He was he works for Best Buy. He worked for Best Buy, and after some time, he transitioned into tech, and now he's one of the good engineers there. He doesn't have a bachelor's degree at all. I think he had a small stint at the community college. I don't think he completed that, but now he's a good data engineer, and I know he's good. So, but I know he must have put in some work. So that's basically what, I think it is.
Agreed. Does anyone have any other questions?
Yeah, there's a question in the chat by Isn't saying, how is the turnover for data engineers? So turnover, you mean like if people are getting fired, I believe. That's like they're quitting and stuff like that. Is that what you understand?
Yeah, so let me answer that one. So I think the turnover, from what I've seen, the turnover is less than the average turnover rate for other roles, because most companies cannot get away from having data engineers, right? There are some roles where you can skimp, right? Maybe you might not need 10 people. You might be able to get away with 5. And sometimes that does happen for data engineers. But what most companies our finding is that instead of the data engineering work going down, is going up. So even if you want to overload a small team with a lot of work, it ends up reaching capacity. So there's very high demand, and it's not just data engineering, but we have, data scientists, we have machine learning engineers, and sometimes companies want data engineers to perform these roles as well. So there's a very high incentive to keep data engineers around, especially good data engineers. So turnover is not really something that is typical. Maybe now, because we're going through this whole, inflation period, potential recession, you might see some turnover here and there, especially in the big tech companies. But in general, once the economy stabilizes, that's not something you generally have to worry about.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, there's another question by Chidi saying, how long will it take to get to this level coming from a novice background? So in my view, I'll let you guys answer because you are more recent. Like, what do you think, Chinedu or Ike?
Well, novice, right? Like for me, when I started, it was, I would say, other than being, always being, up to date about what's going on about technology, reading articles, I was a novice when I started. I would say that. I didn't even know. I mean, I've heard about SQL a lot of times, but I never seen the syntax of SQL before when I started. But that answer, how long, I would say it depends. It depends on one, how long or how much commitment you're willing to put in, and how quick you want it. You know what I mean? If you do, let's say, for two people with the same intellectual capability, right? If one person is willing to put 1 hour every day and the other guy is willing to put in 30 minutes every week, obviously the 1 hour guy is gonna, get there faster. So even if you don't have high intellectual capability, like hard work always pays better than talent even. So you see yourself, even if you're not the smartest guy in the room, you can get there faster than someone who is smart because of the commitment. So there's not really a specific time frame, but I would say anywhere typically from 6 months to a year, depends on your commitment, you will be able to break into the field. It could be longer, depends on, if you were like me during that 4 years I was talking and not doing, but typically within 6 months to a year. 3 months might be too short. You might be able to break into a data analytics role within 3 months, or, I mean, although that's very ambitious as well, but it's possible. And also depends on the company you work for. So if you work in a company and you can put in some 3 months and so, and then there's an opportunity, you can do a movement within the company. But if you're not in any of such situations, I would say within 6 months to a year would be a good timeline to plan for.
Yeah, I would agree with that completely. Even if you're an English teacher, right? I don't know how many of you have seen Batman, where there's a quote, it says, "Is not who you are underneath, is what you do that defines you." So it doesn't matter where you're coming from, is the amount of effort and time that you put into it. So I think that's where, if you're really serious, you have discipline, like Chinedu said, you can definitely get it done in 6 months to a year.
Yeah. Then the next question is, do you have to build and showcase portfolio projects to get into this field? If so, are there any good resources? So
Yes, I have some on the slide. We have a resource. We have some few resources, some projects, and there's a lot of personal projects you can definitely build. To answer your question, Kanu, I don't think you need to build portfolio projects. I think portfolio projects is something you do typically when you don't have any experience at all, and you're trying to sell yourself to someone that, look, I don't have experience, but I've done these projects to showcase I do. Typically, if you're coming from already from this field or from IT, and you don't typically have to sell yourself. It's more like if you're a college student or someone who's making a full transition, then yes, maybe have 1 or 2 projects you can showcase. But typically, that's not a requirement. You can definitely get a job absolutely without having any projects.
Yeah, and I'll add a little bit more, like, so normally, like, the way we get into this field, at least most people, you kind of need to package yourself. Like, that's the that's the open secret in IT. So to give yourself the best chance, yes, go work on those projects, practice as much as you can. However, when you present your resume, you should have some resume that shows that you actually did those work, and it shows that you've had the experience, not just that you did it, as a side project, and that helps a lot to get you the interviews. And when during the interviews, you can talk about them because you already worked on them on the side. So you can talk about them, but more in the context of a real world project. And like Ike said, he has a lot of resources on the slides, and I've made some videos as well on those kind of some projects you can use to sell yourself. So that's what I would say, like be able to present yourself as you actually did it in a real job. That gives you the the best chance. All right. What's the next?
Yeah, I think we answered. So I think I answered the question for peace.
Kano. Oh, okay.
Yeah, so I think the last question we have is Chuka.
All right.
Do you all work in data science, work with frameworks? Basically, frameworks are standardized methods and best practices that help you analyze and execute the various situations in the tech field. So what I'll say is, yes, there are frameworks that so you're not inventing things from scratch. That's not really advisable, right? We leverage a lot of existing code and frameworks that exist. In terms of data science, if you do work with a data science team, I've worked with data science teams. Yes, you'll work with them sometimes to help build models or to develop frameworks. But a lot of data science folks, they'll work with like Python frameworks for machine learning and data science. And if you want to go into details of what those frameworks are, we can definitely do that. But there's many standardized ways of doing things. A lot of times you even copy things you've done before. All right, let's say you wrote some SQL to do something, you just copy and paste it somewhere else when you have some new task and just change a few lines and you're done. So there's a lot of standards, best practices. You won't be reinventing the wheel. When you become a data engineer, you typically work with other data engineers that will give you like all the tools and a lot of things that you should do best practice, and you can lean on them for help. I don't know, Mezu, Chinedu, if you want to add to that.
Absolutely. You always like is it Isaac Newton that said, or who said that you always stand on the shoulders of giants. You don't invent stuff on your own. If there's anything you want to do, there's a framework for it, or library. In most cases, there's a lot of libraries for most things you want to do in data science, or data engineering. For those who do a lot of data science, they use sklearn, scikit-learn a lot. There's a lot of libraries. Most of the models, algorithms are there. Nobody's writing a fresh algorithm to do data science model, build a data science model. Obviously, you have to understand how the models work so you can tune them effectively and get the best results. But use frameworks, libraries as much as possible. I mean, you guys, depending on your company, you might write an internal library or module that helps you do certain things that are specific to your pipelines or your work. But most of the time, you always inherit from already existing libraries.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's
All right.
Said, are you guys open to mentorship for those interested? Yeah, I'm open. Obviously, we all have our full-time jobs, but we can always help if you reach out to us. That's how I met Chinedu. You know, we also talked about this. So like, I'm always open. I'm sure they are to offer some knowledge or advice on what to do, how to prep, if you are getting stuck anywhere, if your resume needs help, interview tips. Yeah, definitely reach out to us. We'll give the best advice that we can.
Yep. And guys, I left our contact information in the chat. So if you want to reach out to us on LinkedIn, Workspace, if you're in Houston, you know, we can go grab a coffee. Definitely reach out, like Mezu said.
Yeah. What's the best way to reach? Yeah, we answered that. And I also put my Medium and Facebook things in the chat in case it's easier to connect any of those. So yeah, definitely reach out to us. Is there any more questions?
I think there's one question about how
Like data science.
how employable is it by Noel or something like that? So you mentioned Python and SQL a lot. Could a novice who's trying to break into the field start by learning SQL and Python? How employable does a novice become in data engineering after learning those?
Okay.
So
Good.
What was the question?
It says, let me read it again. So you mentioned Python and SQL a lot. Could a novice who's trying to break into the field start by learning SQL and Python? How employable does a novice become in data engineering after learning those?
Yeah, definitely. You can learn. You can start with those. I always say those are the fundamentals. Like anything, if you're a carpenter, you need to know how to use a hammer, right, or screwdriver. So those are the fundamental skills you need. So knowing that is not good enough, to be honest. Yes, if you know SQL, no Python, it's not like you easily land a job. You still have to learn the other things involved, the other theories we talked about. However, those ones a little bit easier because the SQL and Python, they are the fundamental ones that once you start working and learning with all the other tools, like the ETL tools, you will notice that some of the concepts and how to use those tools, you need those SQL or Python to interact and work with those tools and data storage systems. Did that answer the question? I'm not sure, but I hope.
To some extent, just like Mezu said, if you're interested in anything in data, like data analytics, data science, data engineering, data whatever, right? There's also the other roles that it's not only these three, there's BI engineers, like business intelligence engineers, can also be business analysts. There are a lot of titles, job titles for these roles, for people who know these. For you to be effective, you have to start from SQL or SQL, as most people say. You have to, SQL is the starting point, I would say, for anybody interested in anything data related. You have to learn SQL because without SQL, you cannot do anything basically with data. So that's basically, and it's easy to learn SQL. And when we say learn these, all right, SQL is very deep. I will tell you that, like most things, even Python, all these things we're mentioning, right? It sounds easy, but it's just like a rabbit hole, right? When you get started, I mean, there's not an end to it basically, right? But you have to bear that in mind when learning these things because you cannot learn everything. It's not possible. You cannot learn everything in SQL. You cannot learn everything in Python either. But you have to learn at least to a certain extent. You have to understand the basics. You have to learn to a certain extent that you can use to do certain things. Different data engineering roles require different levels of SQL and different levels of Python. And if you learn the fundamentals, like most things, if you learn the basics, right, you will definitely be able to grow on that and do other things that you want to do. Just like if you're driving, like, right, people who drive. If you don't know how to drive a car, I don't think you can learn how to drive a truck. It's just ridiculous. Just a normal size truck, not even a trailer or something like that. But if you go to, let's say you want to be you're gonna be what do you call it? A truck driver, just for example, right? I don't think you walk into a place where they can teach you how to get your CDL and they'll listen to you if you don't have a normal class or class whatever, the basic driver's license. You know what I mean? So you have to get the fundamentals first, right, for any data related role. And SQL, I would say, is the most important of all. I mean, Python, of course, but like depends on if you want to be a data analyst, your Python skills might not be too much, and so on and so forth.
Exactly. Okay, well, I think that's all from us. Thank you guys for sticking with us throughout the rest of the presentation. Thank you, Mezu. Thank you, Chinedu.
Thank you.
Thank you, Patrick. Yeah.
Thank you.
Patrick,
Thank
do you have anything for us before we close this?
Gentlemen, thank you again. Thank you so much for your time. This was a great presentation. We do appreciate it. For everybody that's on the call, we will go ahead and post this on the workplace chat. If you're a UIU member, you will have access to watching this video. Please be on the lookout for our next series. We will be having the EBOs in medicine on April 22nd, and we'll have Dr. Edna Shukwada who will be speaking on those topics. Again, gentlemen, thank you again for your time. You guys enjoy your Saturday. We'll see you guys. If you're UIU Houston, come out to the rodeo. We'll be there at 3 p.m. Have a good day, guys.
All right, great. Thank
Thanks.
you. Thank you, everyone. All right.
Thank you.